Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk. I'm your host, Coach Kevin Bull Jones, and it's a wonderful day to get ready to talk some football. And we got a big game coming up this weekend. They used to call it the cocktail party. I don't know what they call it now, but it is the Bulldogs versus those Gators from Florida. And I brought in a special guest, a legend of playing in this game, a legendary football player at UGA, as well as years in the NFL and Super Bowl winner with the Chicago Bears, and also a great friend of mine and comrade. The one and only Kevin Butler is here to talk some football and what Georgia's going to do against Florida this Saturday. So if you enjoy the show, please share. Please share. Once again, 100 yards of football sports talk. Welcome, Kevin. Great to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Coach Bull. How you doing this morning?
Hey, I tell you what, I am truly pumped up about the football this weekend and what's going to happen. And I really wanted to, with UGA being where they are right now as number one in the nation, and everybody has their prognostications and points of view. For me, I always want to bring it home to people that have played in the game and people that have coached in the game. And in this case, you definitely fit in both of those scenarios. So what's your take on what's going to happen this Saturday?
Well, Kev, I tell you, first of all, it's, the atmosphere alone is something that gets the players excited for 2 weeks now for Georgia players. We've been off and we've just been kind of concentrating on getting mentally healthy, getting physically healthy. But, when Sunday came and they popped into school Monday morning and then showed up at practice, it was Florida week. And when it's Florida week, it's a little bit more intense. It's a little bit more focus. And you can make your season no matter where you're at in the season at this game if you come out a winner. So, it's just as big for Florida to try to win this game to salvage something of their season as it is for Georgia to keep their number one ranking and keep moving towards their ultimate goal, and that's a national championship. So as a player, you're excited.
Right.
As a player, if it's your first trip down there, you really don't know what to expect. But when you get down there, it's just a little bit bigger than an ordinary game. And I think that's what the players focus on.
It's funny you mention that because, I know, being in coaching high school ball in Georgia, you get a chance to, rub elbows and talk to some coaches all across the Southeast and just all across abroad. But, it's this week, in particular with the Georgia coaches and I understand it. You just don't have time for friend and buddy talk because it almost seems as this is, I don't know if the right word is make it or break it, but, now that UGA is on top, it seems like everybody's gunning for him. And Dan Mullen has only scored more than 17 points in his career coaching against Kirby Smart, only 3 times. So It seems like the stakes are higher.
Yeah, well, the stakes are high. I mean, they're the highest that they could be for Georgia. And when you think about what you're trying to accomplish, I mean, they are in control. And, Kev, that as a coach and a player, when you can go out there and control your own destiny, you just feel a little bit more confident, going out there and playing a good game and then going home and watching a game going, oh, we got to have this team win. We got to have this team lose. That's just a helpless feeling. So I think what Kirby and his coaching staff are doing are trying to just keep these guys so focused on the end result. And I really believe that they have these guys believing that it is truly one step at a time. You hear it a lot, but One game at a time, one step at a time. You get ahead of yourself, you can fall. And in the SEC, you can do it. And I played enough of these games, and we're down there coaching for a couple of years. Anything can happen in this game. You get off on the wrong foot, seems like that other team gets on a roll. I mean, Florida, though they're not playing their best ball, they have tremendous athletes all over the field. Georgia goes after many of those same kids. So there's a lot of inner strength that a lot of these kids pull out just to try to prove themselves right, prove their family right, prove Georgia wrong, prove Florida wrong. They want to show out, and they want to show out for everybody in the stadium, not for just one side or the other.
It's amazing that you say that, Kevin, because when I look at the game from a coaching standpoint, yes, everybody talks about, and I've talked about it on previous shows about how great the Bulldog defense is. And I had a chance to witness that. Took my son to the game 2 weeks ago when they played Kentucky. And I tell you, I watched some kids get decleated, and I saw cleats flying in the air because I just saw a swelling, tenacious defense with all 11, all hats to the ball. And I was impressed. And I thought that Kentucky wasn't a bad team. So to watch that to watch Georgia pull away later, a lot of it had to do with field position and special teams. But it's something about, Georgia has always had a pretty good defense. But I was convinced after watching that game that Stetson Bennett is no longer a game manager. And I hated to use that term because I didn't feel like it was fair to him. But he convinced me that he's more than that. And I was really impressed. And I think that that's something that when people start talking about this game, they're not looking at how good the offense for Georgia can be with him or JT Daniels at the helm, and not just thinking it's all about running the football all the time. Tell me what your thoughts on that is.
Well, I think, first of all, when you talk about Stetson, I said it last year, Kev, I didn't think he should have been the guy. I just didn't think he looked comfortable. I didn't think he knew really what Monken was trying to accomplish. And I don't know if there was any quarterback that did. You had a new OC in there last year, and his mind's pretty advanced, and he takes it to a professional level. And I think that year that has passed, I think Stetson has matured immensely. I think that he understands Coach Monken now and what he wants to do. And, some of the best coaches in the SEC are the most simplest coaches. And, Nick Saban. You talk about what Steve Spurrier did. You talk about what Miles Dowd did in LSU back then. They just kept it to what the other team was giving them, and they beat you at that. And I think that's what Georgia's been doing this year. And it's going to come down to a game where you have to have both of them. And I think we're very good on offense at both. But when you look at the other side, a defense that's given up 207 yards per game. 62 rushing, 144 throwing. This defense is one that should be talked about nationally, and it is. Much like the LSU offense was, this defense can be one of the best if they carry it through the season and win a championship. If you don't win a championship, it's all for naught. It really is, because at the end of the day, you don't talk about second place. You don't talk about losers. You talk about the winning teams and how they did it. If Georgia does it, that defense is going to be at the forefront because they are, as you said, tenacious, big, fast, and most of all, they're deep.
Yes, and it's crazy watching offenses, because I remember the running back Chris Rodriguez from Kentucky when he was in high school here in Metro Atlanta, played at Ola High School, did a great job. I remember from the Park and Rec League at North Henry High School, North Henry Park, but the kid was always a tough runner and he embraced contact. And I watched the secondary play. I'm going to tell you when I became impressed from watching it in person is when the secondary players for Georgia were hitting Rodriguez and the other running back. And Rodriguez, who's known for a great body lean and falling forward and being a tough, the first person doesn't, take him down. I watched him go backwards. Okay, and I watched him go backwards the whole night. And Kevin, that is different than making shoestring tackles in the secondary. And you know what I'm talking about, because when it gets to the point where we just want the guy tackled, but when you run through people, that's a little soul searching deal that when you wake up on Monday morning and got to go to class, it doesn't feel too good. That treatment on Sunday really is special when you got to go get that training room, because I was impressed. But more importantly, the special teams part of it. Watch them, because there was a point in that game where everything was still even. It was a tight game. And then there was a big kick. It was a big punt, and that flipped the field.
Yeah.
And people watching the game, that you and I, when we watch it from a different set of eyes, the special teams and how important all that is. And of course, you playing a special part in that, being a part of special teams and doing it for so long. And, that part changed the game. And I'm wondering, what is Dan Mullen? He can come up with a lot of things, because he's accustomed to playing against Georgia and Kirby Smart and the defense. But What about preparing for sudden change when the special teams takes over and you get a 70-yard punt? Jeez.
What you know what Kirby's got everybody believing and understanding how special team complement the offense and defense. And
Gotcha.
Jake Cromarta is the best in the business right now of flipping the field. And this is going to be a game where he's going to be huge. You know, when you can make a team go plus 70, 80 yards, no matter what they do on defense, where they stop you, you're still going to push it down there. I mean, you look at Georgia. You know, earlier we blocked a punt this year, and who recovered the punt on the punt return team? Well, that was our starting tailback. You look at our defensive linemen, our linebackers, you know, offensive backs. These are the guys that are making these plays on special teams. And you know, some coaches come in and really feel like, well, that's the positions and the teams that I'm going to get a lot of guys to play on. A lot of guys work hard. They're going to be rewarded, and I love that. But they shouldn't be rewarded if they're not the best person for that position. If you want to win championships, if you want to win friendships, you put everybody out there and make sure they have a good time. If you want to win championships, you put the best people out there all the time. So when I hear people, you know, oh, when Zeus got hurt, he should never be out there. Well, you're looking for friends, not trophies. And, you know, Zeus wouldn't have it any other way. He wants to be out there. He knows if he's out there, he can control the situation instead of sitting on the sideline watching his teammates, who I'm sure he's confident in, but who would put themselves behind another player in football thinking that they can't do the job. I love that attitude. So, well, from a 10-yard return on a punt, just securing a punt and not letting it bounce downfield and get another 20, 22 yards, kickoff coverage, going down and hustling on kickoffs. You're going to see a Florida team probably try to get a little bit more aggressive, maybe bring that kickoff if it's down near the end zone or 1 or 2 yards in. I think for sure Mullins is going to go to trick plays. He's going to have to. You can't beat this Georgia defense just saying, okay, we're going to go head to head with you. And I'm sure there's going to be times when they have to make that statement, but Georgia's just very, very disciplined. And I think in years past, whether they were faking the dive and then taking it outside, you'd see our defensive end crashing down. You don't see any of that this year. You see guys playing their position, knowing what they have to do to just nullify the offense. And it's going to be a challenge. There's no doubt. That first half is going to be crazy. It's the atmosphere. Hearts are beating. But Georgia has a mission this year, and I really, really like where all their heads are at right now.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I think about the dialogue and as a defensive coordinator, when the guys on defense in practice are starting to speak to each other, my favorite saying, and I learned it from some great coaches, don't keep secrets, meaning, secondary and linebackers and D linemen, everybody talk together and blend in, and everybody talks on the same language. It's funny you mentioned that, because when I watch the Bulldogs defense, they look like they all are in tune with each other to the point where, and I can't say that for everybody I've watched this year and other teams, and I'm not going to mention them today because this is not their show, but my wife gets on me because I look at football games a little differently from the average person, because I'm watching all of that going on, and I noticed they are in sync to the point where you got his own read away from a backer, and that backside ed backer or outside backer and that inside backer understand gap replacement, know where to be, and they know the dialogue if the quarterback spills out, and pre-snap formation. It's amazing how they recognize some things. And I wanted to ask you this because this was on my mind. I thought about it, and when you was talking about special teams, and this is, I don't think it's a rumor, because I think I saw it with my old eyes, but I just don't look that old. But is it true when you talking about special teams and what Kirby is doing with starters that play on special? Is it true that the fridge, when you played for Chicago Bears, that he ran down on kickoff?
There was a couple of times his rookie year. Yeah, we had him, and he was, the fridge was one of those players that just made it fun for everybody. I mean, he'd
Gotcha.
get to practice and he'd be laughing, and him running down on kickoffs really opened up Ditka's thought to putting him on offense.
Oh
And
wow.
he was just a great athlete. So when you have somebody down, it almost took the focus off of everything else that was going on the kickoff, and they just ISO'd on Fridge running downfield. And I remember Madden and those guys just kind of freaking out over the size of him, his speed, his athletic ability. And that was kind of the character of that team. When you look at our defense now, I get calls from. I spent this past weekend with Steve McMichael, who is battling ALS, and probably the strongest, one of the most dominant defensive players I've ever been on a team with.
Right.
8-time Pro Bowl, and he loves to watch Georgia play. He loves the defense. Dan Hampton calls me up every week. He called me up being an Arkansas alumni and said, "Hey, you got to give me 18.5 points this week. This is what we're betting." I said, "Hey, Dan, let's just make it simple. I'll give you 20. I'll give you 20." And Dan owes me right now. So, but they appreciate the way our defense is playing. I mean, they are really attacking as much as I've seen a defense that ran the 46. I mean,
Gotcha.
you got Ringo on one side, you got Breeny on the other. Yeah. You could throw those guys one-on-one.
Yep.
And you throw that 46 defense on them with Lewis holding up the middle.
Yes.
Bringing up another safety.
Yes.
In the pros, they had probably about 3 seconds to get rid of the ball.
Absolutely.
46 defense.
Love
on
it.
our defense, you'd have, if they ran into that, you'd have about 2 seconds. And
that's what I'm talking
What I'm saying is the quarterbacks are just not in tune, don't have that kind of speed. It took Joe Montana to break down that defense that we have for 85. I'm just saying this defense poses so many threats,
right.
But their speed is what really just wreaks havoc.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because I mentioned this previously, and the front four, and I want to go with the front three, then 3 interior guys, Wyatt, the Carter kid, and of course Jordan Davis. Yeah. First of all, this whole deal with when you go odd front, and I am a disciple of the odd front scheme, and we do mix it in some bare front stuff and 46 stuff that you all had, but it used to be where the nose tackle had the 2 gap. Well, that's because he was a big chugga-lugger, and he wasn't going to get upfield, but he had to maintain 2 gaps because he was a big space eater chugga-lugger. And now Jordan Davis has changed the whole deal because he's 6'6", 350 plus, and he can run like a dancing bear. Yeah. So he cannot be in the true chugga-lugger, I call it, category. He can't be in that category because he's too fast. And I watch on zone reads how he gets flat down the line, and it's amazing that the whole defense does it. You already got the fast linebackers. Mm-hmm. So now you got a guy who reads zone reading, and it disrupts the whole front with the penetration. And the great part I love about it, KB, is everybody can run. Usually on the defense, you got 3 guys that, okay, we might have to, bring them to the field side, boundary side, we have to tilt some things to front because we got somebody that just doesn't move like the other guys. But everybody moves. Everybody.
Yeah. It really is, but that's Kirby ball. Let's just say it like that. And that's Kirby ball. You come in here at Georgia, if you're a running back, okay, you got to do 3 things. You just can't be a running back. Okay. You got to run, you got to block, and you got to catch. If you don't do those things, you're not going to see a lot of time. You got 3 other 5 stars behind you that are doing everything. If you're a receiver, you just don't run patterns. You got to run precise, and you got to block, and you better catch the ball. So it's not anymore. I run great routes. I don't want to get in there and block. You won't see the field. Lineman, offensive lineman, you have to know every position. Just can't know your guard. You got to know your tackle. Got to be ready for center if we need you there. The defense, I think Jordan's redefined that position.
Absolutely.
If you're going to do it now, you see we had a couple of commits this past week of 5-star defensive linemen that are excited to be the next Jordan Davis.
Wow.
That's what recruiting benefits from players having great years. And he's redefining what George is looking for out of those defensive linemen. They don't want a guy just as you were saying, Kev, the old days, that guy just stand up and he maybe hold 2 guys, not really move, make them go outside.
Right.
Well, he's penetrating now, and he's getting 1 step upfield, and then he's taking off, and he's complimenting the fastest linebackers in football right now. So it's just Kirby ball. He expects more from you. If you're a defensive back, you've got to be a leader, a communicator. You got to tackle. You got to tackle very good.
Yes.
And you got to be in position all the time. And he demands that. I know, a lot of our viewers are not going to know what we talk about, but this doesn't happen by chance. If you're out at practice, you're hearing Kirby. And though it's motivation, it's not positive motivation if you mess up, if you know what I mean.
Love words. I call them the love words.
Love, yeah, exactly. And he does it, and he does it.
Yeah.
Harshly, and but he expects these guys to be on the same level he is, and I think now he's got all of his classes in.
Yes,
these are all Kirby's players. Senior leaders are doing a great job, and you're seeing what's happening on all 3 phases. We've got Jake as a senior on specialty team. N'Kobe's there on defense. You got Lewis Seen talking to the defensive backs. You got N'Kobe talking to the linebackers, the ends, outside linebackers, and you got Jordan Davis up front talking. You got 3 really great captains and communicators on that defense. Just as you said a minute ago, they know what everybody's doing, and they work together tremendously. And you look on the offensive side, they're reaping the same benefits.
Well, I tell you, talking about the offense side of the ball, and just in my breakdown assessment of what I've seen, I'm interested in seeing, what Georgia is going to be able to do to go back down the field, stretch the field, throwing the ball. I noticed in the Kentucky game, a lot of stuff with the tight ends that I thought was fantastic. I enjoyed watching them getting the Washington kid involved and the Bowers kid, and he's fantastic. And everybody, is waiting to see those running backs take off, which what they do. It's strictly ground and pound. But my question, and now I'm like, once I go back into DC mode, because I try to figure out what can hurt me. And I'm not seeing right now just yet Georgia have those receivers. And I'm talking about the speed kids, not the tight ends. Although I think it's a genius thing that they've done where they've got those tight ends playing in better space, catching balls. But what do you think can happen, where the receivers are for Georgia? Because I know the Pickens kid is out, and I think that's one area that Kirby, when he gets the better flow with those kids. Tell me where you think they are as far as right now with those deep guys.
I think we have them there, but you're right. I mean, the George Pickens is not there. That type of a player, that size of a player, people get mad at me when I say this, but I don't miss George because George was never consistent. Consistently being there, consistently playing, consistently being mature enough not to make mistakes on the field.
Right.
I'm sure he's matured. I'm sure he is a specimen, no doubt.
Correct.
But it's not like we were winning games because of him. He had some great games, and he had some good games, and he had games that he hasn't even been on the field. We need to get one of those guys that's out there now to be that guy you're talking about, and I think we have it. We saw when we knew we could throw deep on teams, we hit him up. Stetson 5 for 5, 240 yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, he can throw that ball. Florida is going to be put in that situation.
Yes.
Trust me out there, Georgia has not touched 60% of their playbook on offense.
Wow.
60% of it has not been touched. And that might even be a small number.
That's
Um,
big. That's big for this time of the year.
because if you look at it, Kev, I mean, you watch it like I do. We haven't run really any kind of things different. When teams gave it to us, we took it.
Gotcha.
And we're going to get into the meat. If we have 8 more games, you're going to see a little bit more come out against teams like Florida.
Gotcha.
You're not going to see it come out against Charleston Southern. You're going to see it, So Georgia's doing what they need to do to win games. And I think the best thing for that is when you come into a game like this, there's so much that Florida has no idea what they might see that Georgia just hasn't shown this year. So I'm confident in that for them.
Okay.
But it's you need that receiver to step up. I think that's one of the recruiting things that Kirby's really out there trying to get. And the tough part is you got that school over to the west that keeps turning out some unbelievable receivers, getting high draft picks. Just like we're doing it with linebackers and defensive linemen.
Right.
People tend to go there until you show them something different and you show them how they can be the star at Georgia. That's still going to be a tough recruiting process. And then, I think, probably it hurts us a little bit to keep flipping back and forth for the last 2 or 3 years. The quarterback position has not been solidified at Georgia. And I'm sure if I was a receiver, that would be something I would think about.
I think that is an outstanding point you just made. I didn't even think about that because, there are kids that still feel like that, Georgia is running back university, which, I mean, the film doesn't lie. You and I, the film doesn't lie. And I mean, breaking down what Georgia does and seeing what needs to be taken away from a defensive minded standpoint, what makes me say, ouch, it's not a receiver going vertical, stretching the field. If Georgia was to go max protection on me and they only had 3 receivers go out, I'm not in the ouch moment because, that's just not, that hasn't happened to me to make me say ouch. So I truly believe, just like what you're saying, it's amazing the thought process in this because you're right. I think Kirby knows that, he's got to get those guys because the tight end stuff can hurt you. Yes, it can make you say ouch, but the deep guys that are really fast, that can, get in their routes really fast, and just like you mentioned, make the catch. The catch. If Bennett has to say, hey, we dialing you up in the huddle, and everybody at Sanford Stadium knows it's going to you, will you still make the catch? Because at some point in time, Kentucky was able to slow Georgia's running game down a little bit. I'm not going to say a lot. Like I said, the score wasn't a big score at halftime. I mean, matter of fact, first quarter, I don't think, either team scored. It was a tough nick and tuck game. But at some point in time, if somebody's going to go 8 in the box and say, okay, let's stop Mr. White, Zeus, let's stop Cook, let's stop the other Milton kid, and let's stop Bennett if he takes off running. Now what are we going to do? I mean, that's where I'm hoping to see. It's the crazy part of it, Kevin, because every time you watch Georgia play, somebody's trying to figure out a way to attack them better.
Oh yeah. You have to. I think and Mullins does a good job of that. He can design an offensive attack system to try to get your weak spot. I don't know where the weak spot is. That's I'm not that smart of a coach, but I would think the shorter, quicker routes out on the corners, getting the ball out into these guys' hand, looking for some yards after catch.
Right.
Off tackle, maybe trying to just ISO one linebacker, kick him out and see if you can get up. I think it's going to be a quick attack. I don't think it's something where you're going to be slow reading, pull out and then take a shot. I think Georgia's just too fast for that. The slow reads, they not only pursue on the running back, but they're also targeting that quarterback. So I think it'll be a lot more quick play fakes, throws quick, be a couple of bombs down there to try to loosen Georgia up a little bit, trying to get downfield. But, I think Georgia, the main thing about Georgia's defense is, and I say this all the time, when the field gets shorter, they get better.
Man.
Everything's quicker, faster, and that plays right into Georgia's hands. So, you can see the ball move between the 20s. It doesn't move fast between the 20s, but when you get there, I think the Kentucky game was a good opportunity to see that. I mean, they had a 22 play drive,
Yes,
11 minutes, and
I
the
remember
last play
that.
of the game, Georgia was fighting on the goal line, and it meant something to them. So that's the last thing they got to remember, and they don't want people to score on them. So be interesting first quarter. I really believe that Georgia will pull away like they pretty much done on everybody
Right.
because of their depth. Because of their depth, and
Gotcha.
when you keep coming in, you keep putting freshies that just can run and big and physical. Back in 2015, 16, 17, I'd see Bama, and Bama would do that like clockwork to people. And I really think Georgia's to that point right now.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I said I wasn't going to mention, I know listeners and viewers that follow me know that, I have affinity for, I said, I have affinity for Bama and what they do as a staff, but more importantly, Coach Saban and the mind process of developing kids that are already at the elite part of how do you take a high school kid and keep him elite. And then I tell him, I say, but hey, I live in Georgia, so my tax dollars go to Georgia. So, I mean, Georgia's getting some love. Plus, one of my former teammates, you, plays for Georgia. So I got some love.
Well, I tell you,
so my buddies rib me all the time about, man, you always, well, man, you live in Georgia. I said, you're right. But hey, I know great coaches on both staffs that do a great job. And to watch Kirby manifest through this growth period of him being a first year, head coach and then to what he's brought Georgia to now, I think it's funny that when you mention, there's some things that he took from Tuscaloosa that are effective here. And then he wants to take that and expound even further so that, people like me can stop saying that's the twin brother over there on the West. But it's great mindset and thought process of things to do, which I just think it's amazing. And every college coach doesn't think that way, but you're watching men that have taken the cream of the crop. And I think Georgia does get the cream of the crop, and of course, with Kirby being there for so long, being successful, it's great. It's great teaching ground. So with that being said, and when you mention that, it just my viewers that follow me know, oh my goodness, you mean Kevin Butler is mentioning the success of Bama too? Well, listen, it is compliments, and I think that people don't understand as coaches, as you and I, now you've been on the coaching end of this too. It's a hats off to what other people have done. When somebody mimics or copies a part of what you do, they're really saying, I salute you.
Well, if you don't like champions, it's because they beat you regularly and you can't obtain what they have.
Gotcha.
I think that's natural. And when you talk about Alabama, if you just despise Alabama and you're not in the state of Alabama, you got to just be jealous. I think that's what it's based on. No matter what sport.
Gotcha.
If you want to win championships, you learn how the champions did it, because it's not done the same all the time. But there are some foundations in every championship team that have those same qualities. Yes. And if you despise them, you're probably not going to adopt them. And if you want to adapt it and become a champion, you do it like Kirby's doing. Darn right, Kirby. It's not his twin brother over there. It's his dad. It's his dad that taught him everything. And Kirby stayed extra time because he felt like there was more to learn. He could get better. So when he did have that head coaching opportunity, and he passed a lot up,
yes,
he was looking for that one opportunity where he felt he could put his spin on everything that he's learned from being around some of the best coaches in college football ever. So, I grew up. Hey, I went to more Alabama games than I ever did Georgia games. I went to more Georgia Tech games than I ever went to Georgia games. People played for championships, and you went there to either watch individuals, how they, handled themselves, or you watch a team, or you watch how the coach handles it. I was into all that like you were, and it always made a difference to me because I always tried to pick up something. So,
Yes.
um, hey, does it stink being behind Alabama? Absolutely, but it's not like and I know that we weren't offsides. I know that all these things, I knew all these things happen, but that's football,
That's what
and that's called adversity. And champions go overcome adversity. And Alabama always, and still to this day, makes the plays when they have to make them. And until Georgia can make those plays when they have to make them, they'll be behind Alabama in my mind. We might be number one, but I think I share it with every Georgia football player and coach.
wow.
We know who we have to beat to be number one. And
Amen.
it's not Charleston Southern. We will beat them. It's that SEC championship game. It's that game this weekend. It's the Tennessee game. It's the Missouri game, but it's one at a time. And this team is they're handling it really well right now.
See, sports fans, I'm so glad that my brother from another mother, Kevin Butler, came on and said this, because when I tried to say it, boy, the Georgia fans wanted to shake me up because I said that this is where it is right now. But I was talking about it from a coaching standpoint. Being at the clinics, being able to watch the practices, having kids that not recruited by Alabama, but they went to the camps and competed. And then I've been also at Georgia, so I've had a chance to watch ingredients of success, and it's pretty cool. Bama, Nick Saban does something different from the folks in other places and other schools. And Kirby, when you go to a Georgia practice, you see some of the things that are happening in Tuscaloosa, and they're great. That's why we're sitting here talking about how great Georgia's doing and how well the season's gone. And I salute it because it is part of football and the fans and what they enjoy. But definitely, I revel in the fact that Georgia has a chance. That game is coming down to me in December, and I wouldn't be surprised if it came down beyond that in the top four, because the elite teams are the elite teams for a reason. No disrespect to some of the other schools, but if you're not in the conference with them big boys, it's just a different show.
Yeah.
And, nothing against the other schools. And, there's some great, Coastal Carolinas and Liberties and even Cincinnati. The dogs are the dogs.
Yeah.
And the big dogs have bigger bites.
Yeah, they do. And the one word that Kirby's used this year, and you just brought it up, is he's challenged them to be elite. We know what that means. That means be like Bama and be better. And if you don't believe that, you just have to look at the records. The consistency of Alabama over the past, 10 years is very similar to the consistency of Georgia over the last 4 to 5 years.
Gotcha.
They lack one thing: rings. You got to get rings. You got to get rings to quantify and qualify what you've done. So they're focused on it this year. If it doesn't happen, it's not because they weren't prepared.
Right.
It's not because they weren't good enough to do it. It will simply come down to somebody made the play and Georgia didn't. And I really believe that Georgia will make the play this year.
Wow, sports fan. I'm full. I feel like I'm about 6'5" now, even though I'm far from it. But that's just fulfilling to on that note bring this show to a head. I wanted to touch on some other things, but you gave me exactly what I really wanted to hear. And I hope that the sports fans and listeners that have been following me and following just from a coach's standpoint, what's going on, because I'm still in my season. And we're having a tough one, and we're 4-4 now. But, we got another chance Friday night. And unlike in high school where you only got 10 guaranteed weekends, collegiate level, you got some other stuff that can happen if you get it right. So give me your final thoughts on the game this Saturday.
Well, I think, First of all, I'm excited for it. You got the Georgia Florida game. Then we're going to flip right over to the Braves hosting at home, and hopefully they'll be going for their third victory at that point. I think it's going to be, typical Georgia Florida game. Very intense at the beginning, very physical. I think Georgia does pull away from them. Yeah. I think about 13 to maybe 31-13 Georgia. I just don't see them getting into the end zone more than one time. I would expect maybe some kind of pass play. Yes. Just very hard for me to imagine somebody coming out and hanging 100+ yards on Georgia rushing. They're averaging 62 yards given up. Right. Georgia will run the ball and eat some clock up, and I think they'll maintain it. Georgia's averaging about 430 yards, and Florida's 500 yards on offense. So, you got a great offense. It was very explosive, but this tends to be a little bit more physical. Yes. And that's where the focus will be this week. So I like Georgia's depth. I like our Heisman front runner, Jordan Davis, to get out there and wreak havoc. And I think Jalen Carter, Wyatt will be out there. You got Brendan Cox on their side, used to be with us. And, if he hadn't transferred, would he even be playing? Would he even be playing at Georgia? Not that much time, because there's a lot of talent there. So I think he'll try to show out and do something special. But I think Georgia might even focus on him and make him make some decisions, because in this game, hesitation kills in this game. So that's where I think Georgia's going to have the advantage.
It's a great breakdown analysis. I think that it's going to be Georgia, like you said, wear them down. I do think that Florida's going to score, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be on Georgia's defense. I just something else can happen, and I just don't think they're going to score. I think that Florida's going to get 17 points, but I don't think all of those points are going to come on Georgia's defense at all. I think Mullen's going to go no huddle, trickety-do, come up with some stuff, but at the end of the day, the dogs will prevail, and to me, that's the status quo right now, because good becomes elite and elite stays elite, and that's just a little corny saying I popped up with.
Question: You said that he hasn't scored more than 17 on a Kirby defense.
He's only done it 3 times on a Kirby defense.
He's not going to get 17 this week. He's only done it 3 times. This is not the week to go set records.
I got it. Well, let Kirby Herbstreit tell it. That's what he said too. It's not going to happen. So I think we echo in the same sentiments. And if they would have scored 17, let me put it like this: I just didn't think it would be on the defense. That's something else.
Very good point. Very good point. Special teams,
turnovers, pick six, or either. I just don't think it's going to come. I just don't think it's going to happen. But Kevin, I appreciate you coming on with me, brother. I enjoyed this morning talk we had. You have started my day, and it's wonderful to get a chance to touch base with you and just roll up the sleeve and talk some football. I love it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Hey, man, good luck this weekend. 5-4. That's a winning record, baby.
Amen. That's what we're trying to get to, and we're in the region with Langston Hughes, Westlake, Love, Joy, and Tucker. So we're in the SEC of Georgia high school football. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you coming on. I really do. Well, sports fans, if you enjoyed the show, thank you on behalf of my producer, Logan Landers. I appreciate all the work behind the scenes, brother. Thank you so much. If you all enjoyed the show, make sure you share it again. And thank you once again for watching 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk. We'll see you.